Alrighty. Well, hey guys, this is Dr. Dave Nelson for US One. I meant to do this a little bit earlier, sorry, but I try once or twice in the semester to record a special message just for the class so that you know that there is a real live person. I know it doesn't always feel that way with online classes because to a large degree, you're kind of teaching yourself. You're listening to recorded lectures, and you could probably tell some of them were recorded recently and some were recorded a long time ago. I think the Europe in 1500 lecture I literally recorded like 6 years ago for the Scotland program. So if you listen to it, every so often I'll talk about when we're in Scotland. That's why I need to re-record it. I just haven't done that yet. But anyway, I know it feels very much like sometimes there's no one there. And so anyway, I just wanted to kind of connect with you guys just for a moment. It's Monday night. What is it? The 24th, is that right? 24th of August, just to give you a sense. It's about 10 o'clock at night. And you guys just got done with your first real discussion last night, Sunday night, and I haven't even graded them yet, so I will in the next day or two. A couple of quick things. Number one, one of you just recently, like a couple of hours ago, let me know that there is a problem with one of the lectures. I think it's the Africa one. And in fact, either when I get done with this or in the morning, I'm going to re-record it. So if you've tried to watch it yet, you'll notice it works at the beginning and then there's no sound and then there's sound at the end. So I am going to re-record that. So you can, if you're at that point already, you can kind of skip Africa for the moment. And then in about a day or so, you can go back to it. But anyway, I'm sorry about that. Thanks for letting me know. If there's ever any issues with the video, always let me know. Because a lot of times I hate my voice. So I'll play it for a minute, go, yep, that plays. And I don't always realize that there might be problems midway through it. One other thing I think I need to mention real quick, because I've gotten a couple of emails, which is not a problem, but I've gotten a couple of emails where, people have questions and they're actually questions that the answer is already out there. So I know a lot of times you guys just go right to content and then right to unit because you're trying to get the work done, which is great. But the way other than a few videos, sort of the way I communicate with you guys usually is right on the front page. I always have announcements. I think right now there's only one announcement. It's the initial announcement, but I kind of have everything there. I have all the due dates or almost all the due dates. And usually I try to link directly to the material. So before you send an email or if you get confused, first thing you should always do is just look at that announcement and see if any questions are answered there. And as things come up throughout the semester, that's where I'll kind of make announcements. So kind of always make a point of just checking that. And you should get an alert whenever I put an announcement up, but in case you don't. The main thing I just wanted to do, other than to just again show that this is unique, because again a lot of this class is from past semesters, and I just reuse the same lectures. I did want to show that I really am paying attention and listening to you guys. So for your first sort of your mandatory assignment, I have to make you do something the first week. That's sort of how we take role in online classes. So I had you guys introduce each other. But the other thing I had you guys do was fill out a little survey for me. And one or two of you, I think, have been in other of my classes. So I do this in all my classes. So I asked you just a few simple questions. What's your major? What do you want to do after college? A couple of questions about history itself. So even though you guys probably aren't that interested, I love these things. And I thought I would run through some of the answers as a class, especially since you guys don't really get to see each other much. So I asked you guys your major, and I guess the number one major in here actually was simply no answer. A lot of you are due enrollment, so you're not thinking about a major yet. So I think 11 of you, we have 39 in the class, so 11 of you just didn't really have a major. But as far as people who named a major, the number one major in here was nursing. We had, I'm just double check my numbers here. Yeah, we had 8 nursing majors in here, which is, again, almost a third of the class, which is pretty typical. Most of my classes, nursing is usually number one. Right behind that was engineering, mechanical engineering or electrical engineering. I think we had 5 in that. And then most everybody else was kind of one or two: criminal justice, nutrition, art. We got one history who wants to go into law eventually. We got a forestry, one wants to go into psychology, a lot of medicine in various forms, including nursing. We have another person that wants to go into law, a couple of business majors. Now, what you guys want to do when you get out of school, the number one answer was just simply get a job. One wants to work as a psychologist with kids. We got a surgeon. A couple wants to be a doctor. 3 said they want to be lawyers. We got one that wants to be an oncologist, computer science. Let's see, what else do we have here? A couple want to travel. One wants to be a veterinarian. One wants to be a cardiologist. One wants to go into real estate. One wants to go into the Marines. So I always like that question better than the major one, because that one's a little more revealing. Anyway, then I asked you guys, just off the top of your head, what do you think are the 3 most important events in U.S. history? And the top 3 answers, which are usually the top 3, 27 out of 39 said something to do with the revolution, declaring independence or fighting the revolution, creation of the country, which makes sense. That's not my favorite answer, though, because I always feel like it's almost cheating. It's like saying, what's the most important day of your life? The day I was born. Yep. But it's a good answer. And it's what most historians would say, by the way. Number 2 in this class, which is usually the case, is Civil War. 18 of you said something to do with the Civil War, the election of Abraham Lincoln, or fighting the war, the Battle of Gettysburg. And then 13 of you, which I thought was a little bit low, actually, it's only a third of you, said something to do with World War II, Pearl Harbor, which I would argue World War II is one of the biggest events in world history, period. And then after that, we got 9/11. 12 of you said that. Civil rights movement. 9 of you. 6 of you said something to do with freeing of slaves, which really has something to do with the Civil War, but y'all said it separately. And then behind that, we got like Depression, War of 1812, the creation of the Constitution, the election of Trump, the moon landing, World War I, Industrial Revolution, the Gulf War, Vietnam War. Most historians would say what you guys said: revolution, Civil War, World War II. My answer would be similar, but instead of revolution, I would go back a little bit further, what we sometimes call the contact period. Because to me, when the old world, and in the class, this is about where we are with the lectures, when the old world, Europe and Africa, came to the New World for the first time around 1500, I mean, that really changed the world, and we're still feeling the effects of that to this day. To me, that is one of the biggest all-time events in human history. So, and the only thing I would say, these are all good answers because they're your answers, right? The only ones I would say that I would be a little hesitant would be maybe 9/11 or anything since 9/11, like the election of Trump, or I can't remember, there was another one that recent. And the example I always use is that anything that's 20 years or less, it's kind of hard to say, will it be important, for 100 years or more? And I'll give you an example. Does anybody, and obviously you can't answer me, but does anybody in here know what I'm saying when I say, remember the Maine? Now, if this was 1920 instead of 2020, just about everybody in here would be like, oh yeah, I remember the Maine. Most people don't remember the Maine. The Maine was a U.S. ship that in 1898, as one student said, got blown up. And that's a good way of saying it, because even to this day, we're not exactly sure what happened to it. It was probably a mechanical error, but it got blown up. But that led to a war with Spain. And that war led to us getting Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam, Philippines. It's a pretty big deal war. No one remembers the Maine anymore. So is 9/11 going to be a Maine? Or will it be more like Pearl Harbor, which several of you said Pearl Harbor? It's hard to say. It's clearly probably the biggest event in our life. COVID might be getting close, but at the moment, it's probably the biggest event in our lives. Is it the top 3? As a historian, I'm not ready to commit to that strong of a statement yet. Then another one I always enjoy, asking you guys, who do you think is the best president? Who do you think is the worst president? It's just simply, who's your favorite president? The top answers in this class were best. It was a tie. 12 of you said for each one of these. Abraham Lincoln and George Washington each got 12 votes. Barack Obama got 5, Franklin Roosevelt got 3, and Ronald Reagan got 3. Then we had a few others. Let's see, JFK got a couple, George W. Bush got a couple, Harry Truman got 1. And then for worst president, top answer in here, which has been interesting because it's interesting seeing this person's reputation go down over the years. Bill Clinton got 9 of the votes, but then the current president, Donald Trump, got 8 of the votes. And I'm recording this on the first night of the Republican convention. And I will argue, and that's been the case in all my classes this term, is that he's either been number 1 or number 2 for worst president. And that's not boding well for the election. Who knows what's going to happen, but that's not good for a current president. But it's also fairly typical. We tend to like you, and then we elect you, and then we hate you, and then when you get out of office, we like you. We like you again. And then 4 said Herbert Hoover, and 3 said George W. Bush. And then a few others. We got a Truman. We got an Adams. No, not George W. Bush. Excuse me, Buchanan. 3 said Buchanan. 1 said George W. Bush. 1 said Harry Truman. We got a John Adams, a Ronald Reagan, a Lyndon Johnson, a Jimmy Carter. Oh, so bad for Carter. He's from Southwest Georgia. One thing I will say about both best and worst, and I think this is well, no, we got an Obama in there for best, right? Kind of like historical events. I would say at least 20 years before you can really historically judge a president. Now, voting, absolutely, you can judge quickly. But when it comes to in the long term, it's really hard to say whether a president is effective or not, because a lot of decisions that a president makes in real time is completely unpopular. But in 50 years, we realize, oh, that was a brilliant idea, or just the opposite. Oh, that was a terrible idea. So, Clinton, maybe it's been a little over 20 years now. I think we might start judging him. But Trump, Obama, George W. Bush, as a historian, I would be a little hesitant on that. And then just simply, who is your favorite president? And 12 of you said Abraham Lincoln, which I think is the highest I've seen him get in one of my classes. And 6 of you said Teddy Roosevelt. 5 said Trump. So while 8 of you don't like him, 5 of you, he's your favorite. 3 said Barack Obama, and 3 said Ronald Reagan. And I think rounding out that list, got a couple of JFKs, 1 John Adams, 1 George Washington, and 2 FDR. Again, as a historian, and also as somebody who's been teaching since, I guess, 2003, 2004 is when I began, when I was still at FSU, it's interesting seeing how this changed. When I first started teaching, everybody loved George W. Bush and hated Clinton. And then by 08 or 12, everyone loved Clinton. People hated George W. Bush. Now we seem to be going back to not liking Clinton again. But what's really interesting is who's not on these lists. When I was in high school, JFK would have been number 1 for most people. Thomas Jefferson would have been 1 or 2 for all of us. We would have loved, and I'm still a fan, but nobody ever says Jefferson anymore. He's almost completely forgotten about by most young students. And I think some of that has to do with the more we know about him, especially the issue of slavery, which is troublesome. But at the same time, he was an incredible president, and he also wrote the Declaration of Independence. But it's just interesting that he's almost forgotten about. And Andrew Jackson's almost completely forgotten about. I think 1 person said him for worst president, but he doesn't get mentioned much anymore. And if it is, it's almost always as worst, when 50 years ago, he probably would have been one of the top 3. By the way, historians, and I would agree with most historians, most historians would go with George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and Franklin Roosevelt, even though I know a couple of you really don't like Franklin Roosevelt in particular. But we're not necessarily saying these are presidents that we like. What we're really saying is these are presidents that truly affected the country, that they really displayed leadership and were able to get the country through a rough patch. Doesn't mean necessarily that all historians politically agree with these presidents. Okay, let's see, what else? As far as books, actually a lot of you read, but I did I was specifically asking for books that you didn't have to read for school. I think I wrote non-textbook, but I really meant anything you had to read for school. And I'm going to be honest, although these are incredible books, if I had to bet, I think most of these were assigned, because I keep seeing the same couple of books over and over and over. And I thought, I bet these are high school books. I could be wrong. I think the #1 book was To Kill a Mockingbird, which is actually my favorite novel. So hopefully you're reading that on your own. But I got a feeling that a lot of these, again, were read for school. But a lot of you do read. And in fact, I think 6 or 7 of you, I just wrote lots. Unfortunately, there's also a lot of you that don't read. And I would argue, please read. It's one of the best things you can do. And it looks like a few of you do read. I'm a big film buff. I even teach a course in horror films, which is why I asked one of the questions I did. So I'm always interested in what students, what kind of films students are watching. One thing I will say that has changed since I was a teenager and even in my 20s, and even has changed since the early 2000s, is I don't think movies are as important to younger people as they used to be. And I think part of that is because there's so much out there. You know, we have, the lines are blurred between television and YouTube and streaming and movies and video games, that I don't think going to the movies anymore is quite what it was even 20 years ago. And it is interesting that most of the time I find students today don't ever talk about the same movies. There was one movie, however, that 12 of you mentioned as your favorite movie of the past year. That was Avengers Endgame. And there's no doubt superhero films do dominate. But other than that movie, I think Joker got 3 people said Joker, 2 people said Jumanji, and then everybody else said something totally different from each other. And I don't think anybody on your favorite movie of all time mentioned the same movie more than once. Looks like the oldest movie, I think, is Top Gun. That would be 1986. Most of the movies came out in the last 4 or 5 years. There was a Dirty Dancing in there. Oh, Sleeping Beauty, the Sleeping Beauty. Actually, that's the oldest one. I think that's 59. A lot of superhero films. You got It, Bad Boys, a few others. But anyway, finally, where you guys are from. In this class, out of 39 people, 8 of you, that was the #1 answer, 8 of you are from Camilla. You usually only get 1 or 2 Camilla students, so we have 8 this time. 6 of you are from Bainbridge, which is the campus I teach on, and then 4 of you are from Tifton, and then we have we have people from Albany, and we have people. Oh, I got an Old Town, Florida. I'm a Floridian, and in fact, I'm in Quincy, Florida right now. I'm only talking to one person right now. I have never met somebody from Old Town, Florida in college. My family is from Dixie County, Florida, Horseshoe Beach, Cross City. And I thought, like, wow, somebody's actually from Old Town, Florida. You know, so anyway, that was cool. We got somebody from Cairo, Sales City, Georgia, Thomasville, a couple Albany, Covington, Cuthbert, a couple from Blakely. But where some of you are original, and I know I didn't say everybody, sorry, and where some of you are originally from, we do have somebody from Long Island, New York, a couple from Atlanta. We got somebody from China originally, and somebody from Brazil who is at Tifton School, but their family, and they're still from Brazil. So it's a little bit of all over. Finally, last thing, and then I'll end this video. I asked you guys about horror films because I'm teaching a brand new class this semester on horror films. And I'm hoping to teach it every fall. It's a history class, but we're using the horror films as our sort of what we're looking at history through. And so if you're around next fall, I hope you think about taking it. I think it's a little too late now to get into it, but I hope you think about taking it next time. It's a 1 credit. And basically we just watch a lot of movies and talk about them. So I asked you guys, do you even like horror? And it was a 2-to-1. So, I mean, almost exactly. 26 said, yes, you like it. And 13 said, no, you don't really like it. And out of the 26, I think there were a couple were like, it's okay. I guess so. As far as what you consider to be the scariest film, it is interesting. There are 2 films that come up in all of my classes. And it's funny because they're made by the same director. Either one of the Conjuring movies or one of the Insidious movies. 8 of you said Conjuring, 7 of you said Insidious, and then 4 of you said It. There are a few other movies. We got Friday the 13th, Exorcist. That was my scariest growing up. Hereditary, The Boy, Jeepers Creepers, which is really a creepy film if you read about the film director. Anyway, a couple for Annabelle, got a Salem's Lot, Happy Death Day, The Witch, which is great. 13 Ghosts. But it is interesting. I would say for Southwest Georgia, for people 25 years or younger, Insidious or The Conjuring is without a doubt and they're very similar actually. One of those would clearly be the big horror film. All right, silly little survey. That's it. I just wanted to, again, just try to connect with you guys just for a second. Again, I'll get your discussions graded in the next couple of days at the most, and I will get that Africa lecture fixed. So again, my apologies for that. All right, thank you guys. I do appreciate it. Let's see if I can turn this thing off now.